This is Richard Nicol from Pittsburgh Modular Synthesizers here at Sweetwater, talking about our new Lifeforms systems. Today we're going to demo the System 201. 201 comes with our new SV1 dual oscillator synth voice module and also the KB1 pressure sensitive keyboard controller. Really a modular synthesizer, everything you need in one really nice sized package. So the synthesizer voice itself, we could talk a little bit about the architecture here. You do have MIDI to CV, so you have full MIDI control over the synthesizer. It does come with arpeggiator built in too, so if you have a MIDI keyboard, you can add that and play some nice arpeggiations. Digital clock syncable, DOS syncable LFOs, digital noise, digital sample and hold. Quite a bit of functionality here just in the digital MIDI section. The rest of the synth is all analog. So you have two big beefy analog voices. You can hear those here. We're listening to two oscillators. We have an arpeggiation running here, so that'll give us some sound while we do some demos. Right now we're listening to a couple saw waves from both oscillators. We can add in some low end on the sine, and we also have a sub oscillator here where we can go 1 or 2 octaves down. Those oscillators run through a mixer. The mixer is actually really unique. It can act as a single 4-channel mixer, so you can patch in any of the waveforms you're interested in, or it can break into two 2-channel mixers. The nice thing about that is you can use the top section to mix audio and the bottom section to mix CV, or to mix 2 separate audio channels that are used throughout the patch. So it really, a nice mixer and a really flexible architecture there. That stuff we all have dumping through the filter right now. It's a state variable filter. So you have low pass, high pass, band pass, and notch available as well. Lots of drippy resonance. This up here. Everything we have control is a fully functional ADSR. So we've changed the patch a little bit, and we've switched to sort of a pulse width modulated waveform here coming out of oscillator 1 into the filter. We're controlling that with the envelope. And the idea is to show you the tightness and the really percussive sound that we can get out of this envelope. Really giving you something interesting and unique, just to show a bit of the wide variety palette. So you have these great little percussive sounds, and because you're working with a pulse width modulated wave, it has this movement and this. It's always a little bit different. It's not just a static on-off sound. It has a life and it breathes a little bit, which is very cool. In addition to the sort of main functionality, the oscillators and the mixer and the filter, the envelope, there's a ton of extra stuff sort of thrown in to make it a complete modular. So like I was saying, you have your digital noise and your digital LFO built into the MIDI controller. You also have analog noise, and you have an analog sample and hold. You have multiple, so you can split signals. You have a fully functional VCA, and you have your output module as well, so you can patch to headphones, you can patch to your line out. Everything in here is modular, and what that means is, although there's normaling going on, which is so you don't need patch cables to play it, every patch point in every section can be broken out and used individually. So you can use just the filter, just the mixer, just the oscillator. If you add a new filter, another Eurorack filter to it, you can patch the oscillators into that filter back into the VCA. So what it becomes then is not a single synth voice in your system, but it becomes the core of your modular. You can grow and you can expand with it, and you can take bits and pieces, use it here and there. So you're never gonna outgrow this thing. It's nice to have a synth voice that you can grab a big fat bass line or a nice soundscape with, but if you wanna add and just use the mixer, just use the oscillator, that's there as well. So a great system for just that. So we have this wonderful synth voice, and we've controlling it with the KB1 keyboard. The KB1 is something that we designed really because we wanted to make one keyboard for us that we could perform with, and something that did exactly what we thought, you know, a modular synthesizer needed in a controller. So we're listening to the arpeggiator here. We'll go back to the monophonic mode. You can see it's very touch sensitive, very easy to do. You can change the sensitivity very quickly, from very easy to really have to press to anywhere in between. And the reason you want to do that is because as you're playing through your set or as you're performing, you tend to get excited and you tend to play harder and harder and harder. And you want the synth to be able to respond exactly the same way to how hard you're playing. So you can very quickly adjust the sensitivity of it. The keyboard can be monophonic, it can be duophonic. So if you have a second voice, a second SV1 or a second modular voice, you can play 2 notes at a time. And then of course we have the arpeggiator that we've been listening to here. The arpeggiator has some interesting features. We'll go to a nice tight sound here. And we'll show you some of the features. There's some ratcheting we can do. We can also transpose. And as you're transposing, if you want to do manual ratcheting instead of the sort of random ratcheting, you can just press a little harder. And the pressure actually changes the depth of the ratcheting, which is very, very cool. So you can add little fills, little breaks into what would essentially just be a repetitive arpeggiation. You can also, we'll open this up a little bit more. You can also split the oscillators apart. So we have 2 oscillators. The oscillators in the synth, by the way, are free flowing, so you can just grab and change the pitch anywhere from low LFO range all the way up past hearing. But what that means in a quick demo is that they're typically out of tune from each other, but very easy to fix. So you can see we can pull one oscillator down, give you some neat effects. You can also change the length of the sequence from 1 octave to 2 octaves to 3 octaves. In addition to the arpeggiator, there is a 64-step sequencer built in, so you can program in sequences. It's a step sequencer, so the way that works is you just hit record, play your notes. You can add modifiers to the notes to create interesting effects like pitch bend, stuttering, whole notes, that type of thing. So there's the sequence I just made right now. I think it's a winner. But you can see how easy it is. It just did a couple things and you got something. This also has all of the built-in ratcheting, has the octave range, it has the oscillator splitting. You can also run the sequences forward, reverse, randomly. You can shift the sequence so the starting note starts at note 5 maybe instead of the first note that you played, that type of thing. That's all available there. So incredibly deep access just using the monophonic, duophonic, arpeggiator, and sequencer modes. But then you have this section here, which is another sequencer section. And we will go back to just a real simple arpeggiation here and show you what this second sequencer can be used for. We're going to come out of the CV for it into the filter cutoff. And just set this up. You can see as we change, you can see we're opening and closing the filter manually, or you can have that running in a 4-step sequence forward. It'll run reverse, it'll run randomly. So it really adds another analog sequencer into the quantized digital sequencer of the keyboard. And the last section is the triggers. Triggers can act as pressure sensitive pitch bend, up and down. But we thought, you don't always need that. So we wanted to make sure every section was usable in every patch on your modular. So they can also act as triggers, so you can use them as drum triggers or percussion triggers. They can act as latches, so you can touch it once to turn it on, touch it again to turn it off. There are pressure sensitive clock dividers, so as you press it, you get longer divisions of the tap tempo clock or the external clock. And then there's also a random probability generator. What that does is it's just a random gate generator that as you press down, it becomes more dense, and then as you ease up, it becomes less dense. So you really have a pressure sensitive random gate generator, which is great when you're doing soundscapes and drones or even percussion, because it's always going to be some division of the beat. So it ends up being very musical, just very chaotic. This particular configuration of the Lifeforms Modular comes in two sizes. You have, this is the System 201, which has both the SV1 and the KB1 included in a nice case. It fits perfectly, it sits nicely on your lap when you're sitting at home or on the console when you're at the studio. Or we have the 301 system, which comes in a much larger case with plenty of room to add additional modules. It's fully Eurorack compatible, so any Eurorack modules are going to fit in the case, analog or digital. It's a big, beefy case with lots of power, so it's really a professional grade modular synthesizer that you can expand. Thank you very much. If you have any further questions, please contact your Sweetwater sales engineer.